This episode of the Turf District podcast is brought to you by Pod Power. With Pod Power, our sponsors are making it possible for us to amplify the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. This episode, Edmonton Community Foundation is helping us give a Pod Power shout-out to Overdue Finds. Overdue Finds is an Edmonton Public Library podcast. Bryce Crittenden and Carolyn Land host conversations about books, movies, music, pop culture, and other interesting news about Edmonton. It's a great way to learn more about what's happening at EPL and about how you can use your library card to access all of EPL's in-person and online services. To listen and find out more about Overdue Finds, head to epl.ca/podcast. That's epl.ca/podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hey, fellas! We ain't gonna ever back down from nobody. I don't care who it is. This is a brotherhood. And if we stand strong together, we can't be denied. If one of us goes down, we have another, and another, and another that's ready to fight. So let's hit this field and bang them, bang them, bang them. Somebody light me up.
It's time to huddle up. It's the Turf District Podcast. Welcome back to the Turf District, where we huddle up to talk all things Edmonton Elks and the CFL. And we are a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported, and also a part of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. I'm Andrew, and I have no idea what we're going to talk about tonight because we're really shy on information, but we still brought some people together to have a bit of a chat, and I see we have a few people in the YouTube chats that are going to chat along with us, so thank you for joining the huddle so early. First, let's go all the way over to the west side and bring in the one and only superfan Mike.
To do like West Side gang signs now? Is that how it works?
West Side Gentlers? Yeah.
West Side, yes. So like another good filler episode. So this will be good. Nothing to really talk about. So we'll just babble on for a couple minutes and it's done.
We have a couple of games that we could break down quickly and then we're done, right? Yeah. There was the player awards. Of course, we need to talk about those.
See, a couple of things. Good.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's good.
In bed early.
It's excellent.
Nice.
What are you drinking there tonight, there, superfan?
We got some Japanese gin.
Ooh.
That we acquired.
Yes.
Someone brought it over. It was quite tasty. I think you might agree.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree. It was one of the best things about our Tuesday night because the game was really not that great, but the gin was outstanding.
It was a win.
Yeah, that's true. There's a win.
Oh, spoiler alert. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, right. Yeah, jumping ahead.
Right.
Jumping ahead.
Yeah, that's right.
But we did have gin and we did have pizza and excellent company. So that was the good part. Let's see who else is here. Now, you know who got kind of dressed up for this one, superfan?
All dressed up was nowhere to go? What?
It's one Commissioner Kayla. Look at that. Look.
Oh, you mean my background. I was like, what do you mean? I'm always fancy.
Yeah.
One of us has to be.
That's why we have you here. You're our fancy meter because it's much better than the rest of us. But look at that lovely tree.
Happy. Can't even see half the other half.
Oh, look at this. Wow. Very nice.
You can't even see my hallway. I'm telling you.
The fireplace is a nice touch. I like that.
Too bad it wasn't real, but it's all good. Is it the same?
Looks lovely.
Well, it's an really old house, so. But I think they took it out when they upgraded, so. When they didn't need coal.
That's fair. That's fair. I spent a lot of my day putting up my Christmas lights outside,
Nice.
and then I was able to tell Nicole that today was the day that I truly realized that I was a 40-year-old dad, because the most exciting part was that I got new clips for hanging them off of the eaves troughs, and they were. I was so excited. Like, there was only one swear the entire time. It's amazing.
No
Ooh,
hearing
what clips
Kayla.
are these?
Oh, we can't hear Kayla. Okay, so
Oh.
now
Nope.
Naturally.
There.
Naturally.
that would be because now Skype decided to go back to singular people. So I will fix that when we get to our
Singular.
guest. Let's talk to our guest.
It was requested, could we mute Andrew instead? So,
Perfect. Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah, there we
Thank
go.
you, Paul Reckner.
Make sure Doug is not muted.
I will make sure right now, because you're going to bring in our guest, former co-host and one of the longtime friends of the show, the one and only Doug McLean. There he is. How you doing, Doug?
Good, everyone. How are you all doing?
Doing great. And look, see, I actually turned on your mic at the right time so we can
Oh,
hear you.
look at that.
Wow, that's amazing. Look at that fancy background behind you. It's like you're a fan of green and gold or something.
Yeah, well, they haven't been thrown out the window, so I figure that's a positive sign. They're still here, so that's good.
Yeah, it was probably, it was that like one more week before they flew out the window, so...
Yeah, maybe one a week at the rate we were going. Yeah, that's something like that.
Exactly. Tough season, and I know we've got lots that we're going to talk about as far as that's concerned, but let's catch up with you a little bit, because you've been doing some U of A stuff as per usual, calling stuff, and how have you generally been?
Yeah, good. Yeah, generally pretty good. Yeah, I've been doing some Canada West football, so last couple of weeks off in Saskatoon doing the Canada West playoffs, which was fun. U of S trailed 16-0 in 10 minutes into the first quarter on Saturday against Manitoba, and then outscored them 45-1 the rest of the way to give themselves a Hardy Cup and a trip to the national semifinals. So, it's been a very odd but interesting Canada West football season. But it's been fun getting out calling some games.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and we love hearing you on that. And now I'm going to trail back to the Elks for a minute. I wanted to ask you, because we haven't had you on since they've done the whole name change and everything like that. And I think early when that happened, you and I were talking about it and how we both thought it was like it went really well. Like, is that kind of what your feeling was as they kind of went through that transition?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, having been, as a marketing guy, having done, a handful of naming projects for different clients, some prominent, some not, it's the hardest thing marketing wise you can do, because I always joke, it's like walking into the hospital room and announcing to the parents you're going to name their baby. Like, it's just, right? Like, it's like the company can say, yeah, we really want this, but when push comes to shove, it's really hard. And I think in this situation, I mean, does it still sound weird to me? It does. It still sounds weird. I'm not going to lie, but I understand why they did it. And I think the way they rolled it out, they found the right balance. I mean, the fact that the season went the way it did, we'll see how that impacts the overall brand and how that visual identity and naming component is perceived down the road. But in terms of how they did the launch and how the process they took to get it done, I think they did really, really well with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then now, did you get to games this year? Were you able to go in and enjoy some?
Yeah,
I would enjoy it.
I could count. Yeah, I could count on one hand probably the number of games that I missed over the last 25 years. And this year, of the 7 home games, I had to miss 3 of them, which is extremely rare for me. So maybe I picked the right season in which to do that, apparently. But I ended up, I certainly watched them every chance I could, of course. But as far as the home games, unfortunately, I only got to 4, which is hasn't happened in 35 years. So just one of those years, I guess. And some of the broadcast stuff was pulling me away a little more than I thought, which was fine. But I ended up missing a few more than normal.
Well, and like you said, maybe not the greatest year to have to worry about that overall. So,
it was the year that Brian Kelly moved back to Edmonton, so maybe there's a parallel there. I'm not sure.
That's true, exactly. Yeah, so maybe they can. Maybe they need to sign him. He's in great shape. He could probably still play.
Yeah, probably true.
Yeah, I mean,
got good hands.
It's probably that would probably be easier for him than the Ironmans that he was doing. I mean,
well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, his name may come up a little bit later when we're talking about other things, but yeah, I was going to ask you, are you excited that he's back in the same city as you are? Because that's exciting that he's back.
It's great. I mean, well, it's funny, like when you sort of think about it, I mean, especially on a day like today where everything went down and there's been a lot of talk of getting back to the quote unquote, I'll say Eskimo way, whatever we're going to, Elk way, whatever we want to call it. And how many players you think about historically came here from various parts of the US or Canada and stayed here and made a life here. And I mean, here's an example who did stay here for a while, then left and is now coming back because his kids are all here largely, or at least in the province. So I think it's kind of an interesting thing when you think about what we were talking about, or what we've been talking about all day with the changes and where this franchise needs to get to, that in this same year, like you said, Andrew, we have a guy coming back who, you know, he wouldn't have maybe ever been in Edmonton, of course, having now been a football player. So I think it's maybe indicative of where this team can try to get to again at some point down the road.
That would be our hope. Absolutely. Now, before we get into talking about today's news, I do want to do our draws for the $20 gift cards from Pay It Forward with Football, because we had that last week if you shared the show. And so our three winners that were drawn off stage beforehand are Derek Mapstone, Leanne Christensen, and Ken Ludwig. So thank you for sharing the show last week. I will reach out to each of you individually on Twitter, and we can make sure that you get your $20 gift card. And thanks for watching and sharing the show. I appreciate it. And hopefully supporting Stuff a Wallet with Pay It Forward, because that was amazing. So, all right. Now, do we talk about the games quickly first, or do we go dive right into today's news? Okay.
Oh, let's get that out of the way.
Games? I only remember one.
I would ask which one, but it's like neither one was really great. So, let's start with you, Kamish. Just combined games in general. What if you only remember one game, that's fine. But what goods did you have out of last week, or what did you want to comment on from last week?
We got a win. I mean.
Win? Question mark? Upper inflection? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was a win.
It honestly, like, that's just the pinnacle of how the Elks have performed all year. That's it. That's all I have to say. I'm kind of exhausted because, like, even though you get a win, it was ugly. But I mean, in the sports world, a win is a win. And then you go, and I understand it's 3 games in 7 days, 8 days,
7.
Like, that's exhausting. Totally. I understand, but oh my gosh, that last game, I actually, after the first quarter, I just put it on mute and then put the TV on, and I was watching both, and I watched the Lions kind of like clock. I'm like, I'm out. It's on. I'm giving TSN their money. You know, the Elks are getting some of the percentage, but I'm clocked out at this point. So it was a really disappointing way to end the season, but it's over. It's like a clean stab, and we can heal now. And more to the point of clean stabs, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a short bit. Yeah, you know what might have helped in 3 games in 7 days would be like another quarterback that hasn't played. Anyway, let's get Doug's opinion on that. What did you think about the 2 games, Doug?
Yeah, I was at the Canada-Mexico soccer game on Tuesday, which almost outscored the Argos Elks game, but so I didn't see it live. I did catch a little bit, just PVR'd, but I mean, yeah, like Kayla said, I mean, it was a nothing game for the Argos. Frankly, a nothing game for us. And then I was in Saskatoon, obviously, so it's an hour later watching the game on Friday night, and I'm like, why am I doing this? It's like 12:15. I mean, this is just horrendous. I mean, it just got me thinking that, can you imagine if this team had actually been in a playoff hunt at this point, playing 3 games in 7 days? I mean, it goes back to what people talked about earlier in the year when all this went down and they were 2-2 after the Labor Day game, and that they probably, I mean, they might have been better off just to turf the Argo game, lose it, and then play the 2 and be done with the Rider and the Lions game. There's no way. I mean, it would have. Well, again, like Kayla said, I mean, the Lions game was just a disaster, and there's no way had this been an actual legit playoff race that could have paid any benefits to us. But anyway, it obviously didn't make any difference as it turned out. But yeah, it was pretty ugly.
Yeah, pretty ugly is one word for it. That's one thing. Superfan, I know you have a lot of notes on the Tuesday game, but let's talk about the game in general.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, the hangover after the Saturday game was terrible for the players and for me with the alcohol. But
fair.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a horrible game on Friday. At least there were, a couple of bright spots. Okay, I don't know what spots exactly, but there were a little couple of pinpricks of holes, like in a. Yeah, I mean, I was saying on Twitter at the time that when we start doing a post-mortem on this, there are going to be a few bright spots there, but there's just a lot of bad and WTFs in there. I think the epitome of the game was in the Tuesday game when Walker had 4 catches on 13 targets.
Yeah.
That just sort of summed up his entire season, and it was just sort of disappointing to see because he's a guy that was a fan favorite and obviously talented, having won Rookie of the Year here and being an all-star both in the West and the East. I just don't want to happen, and it affected so many of the guys on the team. Trevor Harris had a decent 2019 and not so decent 2021. Somebody I know, I think it was Jerry Cooper, pointed out that Ottawa won all 3 games against a Trevor Harris team.
Exactly.
That's very impressive.
Dear.
I think the other thing that kind of got me was just the frustration that more and more inconsistencies outside of the play of our team. On Tuesday, there was a video review judge overturned a call in the game versus Toronto, but didn't do it before versus the Riders or whenever we've had that. So I don't quite understand that. And again, I don't think you and I, either of us, understand what DPI is. So
no.
Well, what do you do?
What was the line? Yeah, the butterfly on a lily pad is more likely, is less likely to get the DPI call, yet the Jonathan Rose. No, it wasn't Jonathan Rose. Who was it that
Jonathan Rose had the
Shaker
call
Baker?
On,
yeah, was that the one?
Yeah, Jonathan Rose had the call on when Grimes had the interception.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So,
again, just crazy. But again, it's good company, it's good food, it's good gym, and probably would have been better to put an old game on instead.
Next time we'll know better. No, I mean, I think the thing is too is I don't know about you guys, but we went in after the back-to-back Saskatchewan games saying, well, at least they hung in and it was close and they had a chance. And then the Toronto game, there was many times that we thought, well, they're going to lose to the practice roster here. Like
if they had a kicker in Toronto, we'd lose that game.
Absolutely. Like that's, yeah. And if they, and then in the BC game, it's just like you could even tell, like Cornelius threw, what was it, 3 interceptions in the first 3 drives or something. Like it was, but
2 in the end zone.
But he had no arm left. Like it was just, you could tell that was a lot. And like you said, Mike, hey, we got to see another quarterback in the game, not the one that we want to see how he is in this offense, but we did get to see the one
quarterback. Yeah.
A quarterback in Dakota Prukop. So, Doug, being that you've followed along, and I know we've chatted about this a bit, but what were your thoughts? Like, were you expecting to see Arbuckle in one of those games, or like, what are your thoughts on how they handled that?
Oh, 100%, and I think it's utterly ridiculous. Like, I mean, the comments from Sunderland yesterday about practice time, and yeah, sure, I mean, to a degree, I can get where he was trying to come from. But give me a break. I mean, these are pro quarterbacks. You're not asking him to. I mean, you're not asking to come in and carry the team to a Grey Cup. It's, you can run a pretty simple package. You can get him in there and just get him comfortable, so that coming back next season, at least he has some familiarity with some of these players, because some of them are going to be back. I mean, it's like people were saying on Friday, like you can't gas the whole team. Right. You might like to, but you can't.
Yeah.
So you're going to have some guys back. So it just looked completely ridiculous, the fact that they go and they do this and sign him, gave up the 2nd round pick, which now is 10th overall. And for what? I mean, let's be honest. Dakota Prukop he's not a pro quarterback. Let's just be serious. Cornelius, I think, can be a reasonable backup if you want my opinion. I think he's got some attributes in his game that make him potentially valuable. Do I think he's a starter? No. But yeah, to me, it just was completely ridiculous that he didn't appear at least in one of them, even as a backup, like dress the guy. I mean, it sort of summed up everything that, like you guys have all been saying, it just summed up everything that's been going on all season. Just made no sense.
Yeah. His rating in the first game was 22.9, his quarterback rating. Are you saying that Arbuckle with 6 practice games wouldn't have done at least as well as that?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And there's all the conversation of, well, you don't want to blow the hope for the future and all that stuff. I'm like, at this point, we all know that this season is. Like,
yeah,
there was going to have to be changes. And boy, we're there. And we'll get there. Because I know everybody's anxious to talk about that. But
consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Was Cavis in the background somewhere? Neat. Okay. But I agree with you, Doug. There's going to be guys that are going to be back, and there were actually bright spots.
Yep.
When you look through, like Tolliver is a bright spot to me. He's looks like a good receiver that could, you know, and obviously did have some chemistry with Cornelius. But I'd like to see with a guy that isn't throwing the ball 130 miles an hour if he might even be able to catch it better. Like that would be nice. And there's other guys that we're going to have to move on from, but you can see that there's guys there that are ready to step into those roles. Like, I think we've all said Fletcher looked amazing, and he's probably going to come at a discounted price. Like, those are the guys that you want to look and see, where can we get that younger guy that's going to produce and put something into the offense that we've been looking for, that we just haven't kind of been seeing when with the guys.
Outperform that contract.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we've broken those down nearly about as much as we need to. So let's get into today's news, because I have a feeling there might be some YouTube comments after that. So no
one seems to know what you're talking about. It says, what changes are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking.
Okay, well, I'm glad that everybody feels the same way.
So you can do breaking news right now.
Oh, there you go. That's breaking news. I do want to tell you, it's funny. I told you earlier I was putting up my Christmas lights, and I was getting about halfway through the first strand, and my watch started ding, 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 ding. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? And then all I saw was, whoa. And then the next comment, they did it. I'm like, they did what? And then I think I texted you. Like, I'm like, you're gonna have to fill me in here. I'm on the outside looking in. So the Elks relieve Presson, Sunderland, and Elizondo of their positions effective immediately. Board Chairman Ian Murray spoke about the changes and why they were made. Alan Watt takes over as interim chief operating officer until they get other people in place. Wally Buono is going to consult on the new GM search, and they're hoping to have a GM in place before Christmas and a president hopefully by the mid to end January, maybe early February. So a lot to take in there. Doug, you and I were talking about this last week, and if something like this was going to happen, and I think at the time we all felt this likely wouldn't happen, especially when you see the moves for Arbuckle and you know, trading away assets and all those kind of things. But when the news came today, what was your kind of gut reaction?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I was surprised a little bit that let me check that. It's not so much that I was surprised. I mean, I think that obviously we expected something to happen. Did I think they would gas all three? No.
Right.
But the reality is, I mean, if you get rid of Sunderland, you largely have a coach who's going to be a lame duck. I mean, very rarely, not never, but rarely do you see coaches stay. I mean, Jason Moss, I guess, is an exception with Hervey, but that doesn't happen often. And the Presson one, I mean, whether we like him or we don't, the reality is the guy got hired 4 months into his mandate, the pandemic starts. Oh, and hey, by the way, go change the name of the franchise while you're at it. Like, I mean, again, whether he was the right guy for the role or not, I think he was thrown into a lot of difficult situations. So that one did surprise me, I think, a little bit. But yeah, so to answer your question, was I surprised? Yes and no at the same time. But do I think this is the right move ultimately? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think you summed up exactly what a lot of us were saying. Was like, I figured one or two, but I didn't think all three. Like Mike, I know I was talking with you and saying that I thought they would I always believed in kind of giving the guy a chance to get one of his own. So I thought Presson might get a chance to hire his own GM and kind of go that route. But but was I completely surprised that it was all three? No, just I'm surprised that the board actually took that action, I guess. And in the presser afterwards, when the board was saying, well, we heard from a lot of fans and this is all the things that we heard piling up and this was the decision we made. I was like, oh, okay. They actually put it in action. I was shocked. Pleasantly, I guess. I don't want to seem like I want to spread any joy about somebody losing their job, but the change needed to happen for the good of the club. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, losing their job, but don't forget they are still getting paid for a couple of years too.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's fair.
It's not the worst parachute. No. I mean, personally, I was surprised just that. We had these final exit interviews with Elizondo and with Sunderland yesterday going out. And as Doug said, like you've got people that are making decisions that are going to affect the club, not just the end of this year, but into next year and possibly the year after, getting rid of assets to like 10th overall. That can be a big pick. It's a little different than your third round picks, which necessarily aren't going to turn out as anything more than maybe a special teamer. Sometimes we get lucky, but in the last 10 years we haven't. We haven't had a third rounder do anything that's that big in that time. So I was surprised. Farhan Lalji, who is very plugged in, said the team is going to roll with who they have into next year. 2 days later, not so much. So it was a bit of a surprise for me. You could say that, Presson didn't get to really hire his own guy, but you can also say that Jamie Elizondo, he was stuck with the coaches he got. Like He didn't get a chance to really implement his offense. He had to kind of work with what he had because he came in so late. And all the assistants and coordinators were all guys that he had to get stuck with. So, and lastly, the coaches cap, the operations cap. From what it stands now, they are on the hook for the full salaries for at least 2 years for Sunderland and probably at least one more year for Elizondo. Now that's spread out. Like we would divide that over, I think, 5 years. But it's still, it's going to restrict who we can bring in unless that gets changed. I mean, the operations cap, I think, has been handled very poorly. We've kind of discussed that ad nauseum on this show and on social media. It's really been hamstringing a team. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose is of it. I know you can say, well, if you can set a cap, but not the number of players or whatever, but once they're gone, why are they still counting against your cap? How is that competitive advantage, right? So if it disappears, then I think we'll be fine. But if it doesn't, I think that we're going to see some effects for years to come.
I would agree with you, although I think, and that kind of came out in the press conference today, where Ian Murray said, "Yep, they're definitely, we're aware that there will be some, financial implications to that, but we are working with the league and trying to figure out how best to navigate that." But my sense was, it would cost us more to do nothing.
Yeah.
Than it would have been to just face the financial strain of what could happen. And our bottom line is still okay. So
if it's just salary, that's one thing. But I think if we can't get a solid person in as GM or coach, unless you're getting someone doing both, and that really limits the people you can get at that point, then does that just extend it just where we're just robbing Peter to pay Paul? Right. So you're
Right.
going to lose people because we did poorly, but then we can't get quality people in. So we're going to continue to do poorly with just different people. So that's all I'm worried about.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Or you end up with a guy maybe that is coming into this role as a first time thing where he can come in at a lower rate to start with a higher rate in the second or third year. Right. And then it kind of spreads things out a bit. I mean, that's a possibility too. So, Kamish, what are your thoughts on all of the changes?
Well, I mean, you three kind of said it all. It's kind of an exhausting point, for me to break it down. But I think I can approach it on the sympathetic route is like my first thank you, Chris, first off, because I probably wouldn't have even known about this if he hadn't texted me, because I probably wouldn't have gone social media today. So I would have been like, what changes? What are you guys talking about? So thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. But I think I said a couple weeks ago, like, if Jamie and Chris are both gone, I think they got the raw end of the deal because, like you guys said, Chris Preston came in at a horrible time. Really didn't, from our perspective, who knows what goes on behind closed doors, didn't really get to manage a team or play around with some things. I mean, it was a very complicated season and trying to navigate how fans can do things and what we can and can't do and the game day experience. Your hands are a little bit tied. You have to get creative, and maybe that's not a strong suit. And then with Jamie Elizondo, I mean, the word is stuck, right? Like he was stuck in that position, and I don't know, like, I believe in second chances for me. So if he came back next year, I wouldn't be like too upset, because I'd like to see if he actually did some homework on the off season and maybe ramped up that playbook and improved and, maybe got in some personnel that is more suited towards him as a coach and maybe built a locker room around him a little bit more. I don't know. I'm not a professional. I've never been in that position. I've never been in a locker room, so I have no idea what goes on behind closed doors, but I really truly believe that Chris and Jamie got the raw end of the deal, and it sucks. I'm very empathetic towards their position, and I mean, I just hope it's for the better. It's always a risk doing anything, and I'm worried that this may affect the team for years and years to come, both on and off the field. But as long as the culture starts to improve, I think that is my main concern, is not only the culture within the football group, but the community. I think it was very, very damaged. Hopefully this move improves that position by just listening to the fans. I think that'll go far, but how far it'll go and for how long, I'm not sure. It's a bit scary.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, did any of you get a chance to watch the presser with Ian Murray? Yep.
No.
Okay. So I think I want to say that the underlying things that I heard him say a few times that kind of came across was there is a deep concern that they weren't in the community. There was a deep concern that there wasn't the same level of customer service, and the board and everyone else was hearing about it, right? They were hearing that the game day experience wasn't the same. They were hearing, and these were things that are all on top of the team not performing on the field. And I don't know about you guys, but I know when I was looking at the roster for those last two games, I was wondering, like, who is making these decisions? Why at that point? And I'm sorry, I like Darrell Walker, but at this point, why is he on the roster?
Yeah.
Like,
painfully, yes.
4 for 13. Is that what you said, Superfan?
Yeah, 4 catches on 13 targets. There were a lot of WTF moments in there.
Yeah,
in decision making. Elizondo definitely seemed lost. When it's the end of the third, there's about 10 seconds left. The clock is running, and he's calling the punt team on, or the end of the second, sorry, end of the first half, and he's calling the punt team on. Why would you punt? Just take the knee, go into the end, go into the halftime, and away you go. And it just, I mean, it's a first-time head coach, and we've seen it before. We've seen some bizarre decision making from Jason Moss. We saw it from Chris Jones. We saw it from everyone that was a first-year head coach. But like, some of these are really, really obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. Going for 2, then going for 1. Oh no, you can't do that. Yeah. So Doug just summed it up in the perfect GIF right there.
Yeah.
I got that. So, and as people, I agree with you, Kayla. I'm totally empathetic. As some of the decisions that were made both on field and off the field, it's like, yeah, that. It does come a time where they have to make a change, and I'm not saying that the board is without fault because they, kind of let it happen.
Exactly.
But at least I felt today that they were standing up to try and make a significant change. That's what it felt like to me. Did anyone else get that same feeling? Or
Yeah.
I felt heard.
Yeah. I agree. Because as he was saying stuff, I thought, wow, they might have actually watched the podcast. That's neat. This is pretty much exactly what we said.
I don't mean me specifically. I just mean the fan base.
But they totally took all of Mike's suggestions, as they should all the time. Yes. Yeah.
I don't see any more paintings going up of the old players, but
we're going to be calling it the Super Elks right away. It's going to be amazing. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm the first to say that I'm excited for you to put your name in for all three positions and see what you end up with.
Not even one.
Not even
a chance. No.
Okay, so let's talk about going forward. Are there people that you can think of off the top of your head that you're like, hey, I'd like to see this person in this position? Why don't we just start at the president side of things? Doug, is there a name that pops in your head?
Honestly, there isn't. I mean, I know there are names floating around today. I mean, it's funny. You think about, like, with the Oilers, everyone's like, I don't want any more of the old boys club. When it comes to this team, it's like, all I want is the old boys club. It's like Sean Fleming and Rod Conop and Trent Brown and like any player we can possibly conceive of to be the president is who should be the next president. Anyway, so I thought that was kind of funny. But honestly, for me, I don't even know that I have any names. For me, it's more about, can we look down the road? Can we find somebody, she, he, whoever, who can be here for the next 10 years, I'll just use that as a number, and start to build some continuity, because we haven't had a lot of that.
Right.
And I mean, that's been more on field than off. I mean, I know Len Rhodes was here for quite a while. Rick Lawler here before that, Hugh Campbell in the president's role before that. So there's been some continuity, but can we start to think down the road as someone that has some, and it's not just someone that's going to be in that role, but starts to think about, to what Kayla was saying, starts to think about where this team is going in the next 10 years. Because my biggest fear is that they're going to bring somebody in, try to make all these changes to fix everything by next May.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is not going to be fixed by next May. I want this to be fixed by May of 2025. Let's say we're all back on the podcast saying, wow, that day back in November of 2021 really turned the corner for where we are now, where we're seeing 40, 45,000 people, where it's easier for all of you to be tailgating outside of Commonwealth, where it's the game day experience feels like it's something you want to be a part of. That's where I'd like to be. I don't need to see that next June. Yeah, I'd love to, but it's not going to happen. So for me, whoever the president is, be it, if she's going to come in or he's going to come in and decide what that's going to look ahead. That's all I really care about, as opposed to what we're going to try to do in the next 6 months, which, again, don't get me wrong. It's important what happens now moving into next season, but I'm more worried about down the road.
Absolutely.
Build on the sand or build on a rock. Pick.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That could be the title of the top of the podcast. Superfan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, just sort of riffing off of what Doug was saying, we have to get this right. If you look at Calgary, and it pains me to say it, I mean, they've had that consistency at that GM position, coaching position, since 2008 when they hired Huffnagel, and it's still there. And when we had Campbell there from 86 onward after he was in the USFL and NFL, it just seemed like we had that consistency moving forward, and you could see it in how we were always making the playoffs every year. And even when we had maybe a bad year, we weren't necessarily just blowing it up the next year and starting over. We were just tweaking and tooling the roster a bit. So this hire, to me, is one of the biggest one we've had in decades. We have to get it right. We can't have someone coming in at any of these three positions and just being like, oh, it's same old garbage with a different name. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It has to be someone right. There's a lot of great names for president that are floating out there. A lot of them are former players here. Are they someone that can do the job? Warren Moon is one name I've heard a lot of people saying for the president role. Of course, he would bring a lot of eyes here. He would get instant credibility in the United States. But is he going to live here? Is he going to be in the community? And if he isn't, I don't think he's the right fit. Doug said Sean Fleming. That's a name that's been bandied about since before Len Rhodes as someone that probably should have been here. Had he been here, we probably wouldn't see a lot of the changes we've had in the last little bit. So is he the guy? Sure. Does he want the job at this point? I don't know. Maybe. He's probably doing quite well at Price Waterhouse. So, it's got to be someone that wants to be here, wants to live in the community, wants to be in the community and help steer the ship for, as Doug said, 10 years or more kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Kayla, did you have anybody that you wanted to throw up there? I didn't think so, but I thought I wanted to.
No clue. But I do want to kind of touch on what Doug said, but make a plea for the fans and know what your role is, and don't have expectations to be gratified in 2022. This is going to be a building effort by everybody, and going back to actually what Celeste had said about Fairweather fans, be with your team, be loyal. This is where the time is now, where the fans need to actually rally around this team and support it in the decisions that are going to be coming, because it's going to be a rocky road, and you can't just be like, oh, well, we're just back to the same crap. We're losing again. This is a deeper process than just winning and losing, unfortunately, and kind of parroting what Len Rhodes said a few years ago. He may have been onto something. I think we discussed this where, winning is a lot, but it's clearly proven it's not everything, because this culture was very, very damaged. So I make a plea for the fans to just have patience and root for your team. And if expectations aren't met in those few years, okay, fine. But don't expect this glorious team to come about in 2022. If it does, wonderful. But if it doesn't, give me a break. This is business. It has to grow organically, or else it's just going to suffer in the next couple of years anyway. So
that's fair. And I think actually we can look at a very recent happening with this. Look at Winnipeg when they came out of the Joe Mack era, and then they brought in Kyle Walters. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then of course they brought in Mike O'Shea, and I think it was the second I think it was actually the third year in, like they were calling for everyone's head in that
Richie Hall, O'Shea.
Yeah. And they kept with the plan, and now they have a dominant team for multiple years. And that's the thing that I agree with you, Doug, is like you start from the top, but you've got to have that consistency that just stays, and together they find the right pieces to bring the team together and have success. And that's not likely going to happen next year or maybe the year after, but you start to see things kind of progressing in the right direction, and then go, okay, and now we have a real team.
Yep.
And that's something that we all have to be looking forward to. So let's go on the coach's side. Any names that pop that you're like, hey, I would like to see this person, Doug?
Yeah, I'm going to sound boring. It's going to be, I don't have any names that again pop to mind. Again, lots are being floated around today, and same for the GM role, but my answer is the same. Like, let's look at some level of continuity. Like, the problem is, everyone's saying, well, let's bring Chris Jones back. Okay, well, guess what? Chris Jones is going to come in here, and people don't like him, so there's one issue you have to deal with. So culturally, you've got a problem for starters. But the other issue is that at the first opportunity he has that's a little bit better, Chris Jones is gone.
100%.
And so, again, I'm not saying you're going to hire a coach or a GM who's going to be here for the next 15 years. That's just not realistic in pro sports. But I want us to get away from this constant up and down of uncertainty as to who is going to be running the ship here. As a kid growing up, and like I said, I'm not trying to go back to, we're never going to win 5 Grey Cups in a row again. We're not going back there, but But the reality is, like, you think about the continuity on and off the field with the franchise through the 70s into the 80s and beyond. I mean, this is a team that between 75 and 2004 didn't host a playoff game only 5 years. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's 5, right? So, I mean, that's incredible. How many have you hosted since? 3, right? Let me think. 2011 and 14, 15. Yep. So 3 since. I mean, and if you look back at who was running the ship then, there was a strong level of continuity through a significant portion of those years. That's what I want. Whoever's going to be that, again, you're never going to hire a GM or a coach that you can guarantee is going to be here forever, but start at the top, figure that out, and then identify people that want to be here for that. Again, just like what Kelly was saying, like here for the long haul. And to me, whoever those people are, that's who I want in running the show. I'm not sure that's Ed Hervey as the GM personally, but that's another name being thrown around all over the place.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. That's really what we want. Mike, GM, head coach?
Head coach, I mean, I've tossed around the name Mark Washington a lot. I think I really like his style. I think he's a young, hungry, up-and-coming coach. And if you've seen, some of the success we've had with guys like Kahari Jones or Orlando Steinauer, you've got these guys who are young. They know a more modern game and are willing to maybe not just do the same thing they've been doing for the last 10, 20 years. So I like that. It doesn't have to be them, but it has to be someone that's going to be, to me, like that, that's going to connect with a younger fan base. That's going to not be some 65-year-old head coach where you're trying to attract the 30-year-olds, you know what I mean? So something like that. I mean, look at Montreal right now. Kahari has got that fan base just riled up, and with Vernon Adams Jr. and everything else. So if we can bring that kind of energy, I think that'd be a great thing. So like I said, Mark Washington's a name that sort of has been bandied about in my head for a while. But I think it's less about a name and more about a style and a culture of that sort of position, whether it's a GM, coach, or whatever. Bringing back a retread, I don't know. That might appease some of the same people that are complaining about the name because they just want it to be the way it used to be. And I know it's weird and ironic coming from me talking about the way things used to be. But I think you got to go forward, right? You have to get to the point where it's like, okay, this is the new era of the team, because we had a great team in the 50s and then we were terrible in the 60s. And when everyone thinks about the Eskimo way or the green and gold way or whatever you're going to start calling it from now on, that was brought in by new young people. Hugh Campbell was not that old when he started becoming our head coach. And he brought that in and allowed the team to build that culture from within. So let's build a brand new culture. It doesn't need to be tied to the 5-in-a-row gang or the Glory Days gang of the 50s or whoever. They can be their own identity, and the fans can be young and growing with the team like we all did.
Oh, I love it. Kamish, any names for either of those that you want to throw out?
Not names, no. Okay. Because I don't know. I know what I want though, and I want someone who is going to be innovative and creative with their playbook, because we've been quite conservative and a little dull for the last couple of years, in my opinion, especially this year. Don't even. But I think what I would be looking for specifically is now a Jason Moss-esque. Hear me out. I want the players to do what they said they would do with Jason Moss, is they would run through a brick wall for him. I want that allegiance and that dedication to their coach, because when you see it off field and locker room, you see it on field too. And mind you, they weren't a stellar team, but the way those men reacted to that style of coach and that coach and how loyal they were, I think it reflects back into the fan base, just in like media reports and stuff. So something like that, I think, innovative, creative, but someone the players rally behind, because when you come to that, eventually you're going to get a winning team.
Yeah.
Can I just add something to that? Because I agree, but here's my concern. It's more of a league issue than it is even an Elks issue, is the quarterbacking problems we have in this league. Because I agree that we need to find more innovative, aggressive play calling to get this game back to the entertainment level that I think it can be at, that the rules allow it to be. I don't know that the quarterbacking talent exists in this league anymore to make that possible. And that scares me just about more than anything else. because you look across the league right now with the quarterbacks, it's not that pretty.
That's fair.
It really isn't. Like, I mean, who's the best quarterback in the CFL right now? Is it Zach Caleros? Maybe. I mean, statistically, Michael Riley had the best. I mean, statistically the best season. He's 30. Yeah, yards wise, but I mean, they're missing the playoffs too. That worries me more than anything, because 30 years ago, all the players that were coming up here are now they're starting in the NFL. So that talent acquisition piece, especially the quarterback position, is what makes it. I want exactly what you just said, Kayla, too. I 100% agree, but I worry that we're not going to be able to get back there, because I worry about that quarterback position. Every other position seems to be okay. We have good receivers. We have good running backs that come up here. Even old linemen now that are coming up here making it better. That quarterback piece scares the heck out of me.
Yeah.
And not just in Edmonton. That's the league wide.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So if you can find a coach that can connect with a quarterback or has links to some quarterbacks that could then increase that level, that would be like a few years ago, we would have all said that was Michael Riley and Bo Levi Mitchell, and they played the quarterback position amazingly well. But yeah, we're starting to see guys drop off somewhat for sure. And
or was it the system too?
That's fair. That's fair.
System issues too, for sure.
Yeah, that's very fair. That's very fair. I got a few names I'm just going to throw out there for GM. G. Roy Simon, Danny McManus. I know those names have been floated out there. Dwayne Ford, who has also, of course, expressed interest in the Ottawa position, so that's kind of interesting. Ted Govea out of Winnipeg. Now, the only reason I mentioned that is he was a big part of building what they have, and we just finished talking about we would like to have what type of thing. So if you have somebody who knows how to do that, that might be a good thing. And then on the coach side, Mike, you already said Washington. Mark Killam out of Calgary. I know his name has been tossed around a number of times. And again, coming from a really good system and knows different guys. And I'm throwing in a dark horse that probably wouldn't even say yes. But, bring in a new GM. Would AJ Gass consider coming back to coach? Because, good Lord, I like him as a coach. But that's just me. So that's my own little
he was definitely
bias.
tweeting stuff today.
Yeah? Oh, good.
He sure was.
Oh,
geez. I missed those. Maybe that's a good thing.
Just a picture of someone sipping a tea.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So, but I mean, that's probably my own bias because God knows I love AJ Gass. So that's where that happens. So, Mike, what do we got for YouTube comments that we need to talk about?
It's actually pretty quiet. No one said anything. Nah, just kidding.
Wow. What? Okay.
Yeah, strangely enough, people are chatting. Let's see what we've got here. Let me just move this in a bit so I can see a little easier. Come on. It's just taking a second because, why wouldn't it?
Because,
Okay, scroll all the way back. Okay, so people talking about the games we had. The Toronto-Edmonton game was ugly, says Tim Capper. I don't think anyone's going to disagree.
Nope.
When you're seeing so many backups in there and it's a 13-7 yawner. So at one point I thought they were going to pull the goalie. Paul Reckner did say he would like to donate Ken's prize back to be redrawn. So that was very kind of him, very generous.
That's very nice of him. Excellent. Yeah.
Yes.
Paul's really looking out for the little guy. What?
Well, who isn't, right?
Right.
I'm not sure what little guy that is, but and Ken Ludwig says that the Lions game was tough to watch. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. Nope. Tim continues that Arbuckle not playing is completely mind-boggling. I think we kind of touched on that as well. It was
sure did.
One of those things. Julian Poirier says, but think of Arbuckle's future value if he is still in mint unwrapped condition. As a collector, I can see that. I think, wasn't it Paul Reckner that said he was Schrodinger's quarterback? He's both the worst and best until we play him.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think that's been one of the lines of this week for me was Paul there. So
yep.
I hate to give him credit and give him a swelled head, but maybe too late.
Yeah.
Ken also says it was interesting to see the TSN panel on Tuesday night asking the same question fans and sports writers across the country were asking. I'm guessing that's both about Arbuckle and about the future of our executive at this point. So,
Right. Yeah.
Vic Sloda was saying that Walter Fletcher, another sort of bright spot on the season. I think we all kind of agree on that, especially if it's potential that our other starting quarterback may not be able to be in the league in the first place. So,
You mean running back?
yeah, sorry, running back.
Yeah.
Ken says Fletcher is a beast. It will be interesting to see what happens with Wilder next year. And I think I just sort of touched on that. If he is still adamant about not getting immunized, then he's not going to be allowed to come up here. So
Right.
that's not too promising for his career unless he decides he's going to change his mind or the government changes their mind. So
Right.
Patrick B. Penguin is in. I'm not sad I chose to go next door to Rogers Arena instead of BC Place. Hashtag part-time fan.
That's what we've always said about Ed, part-time fan.
But on the plus side, it makes him a first-tier fan for going to the paying money to go see the Oilers play.
That's true. Yes, it does. Yeah.
Rather appropriate given, who just went up on the banners.
Yeah.
Winter Sun, a.k.a. Everyone's favorite Ottawa hippie, said that can be the subtitle for the show. You can't gas the whole team.
Now, wait, what if he's the coach, though?
Yeah.
That's true.
Then you could.
Well, we could try it. It's never been done before. We could just
Problem
try
solved.
Yeah,
Problem, exactly.
get rid of the whole team and his draft.
Start
and
over.
Start, yeah. That would make an interesting headline, wouldn't it? They have no team going into free agency.
There's
Yeah.
nobody.
Yeah.
We got everything is open. It's an open competition.
That's right. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something? Ken Ludwig suggests we should be paging Sean Fleming. I'm guessing that's for the president role.
Yeah.
And-
Definitely.
Coach Vic was talking about how we said that maybe Preston deserved another year after coming in. And he said Preston might have asked to be fired after this last year.
Yep. Fair.
Yeah, where Ken Ludwig says, I don't think that Preston understood the CFL or the fans in Edmonton. I know I was sort of high on Preston when he came in, just in what he did for Oklahoma, for hockey in Oklahoma, which is, again, not a major sport in that particular state or south of the border at all outside of sort of Texas.
You don't say. Weird. Yeah.
I know, weird. But I don't know. I mean, if there hadn't have been COVID, could he have done more? Maybe. But I guess it's sort of an academic question now.
Yep.
What else we got here? Ken says, I have read internet rumors, that suggest there will be changes made to the operation cap this offseason. So as it stands now, there aren't any, but it could be renewed at any time. Certainly evaluated. And if it's going to start looking like it's affecting more than just one team, and after especially we saw that, other teams were able to go over the cap and not get penalized, Toronto, last year.
Right.
No, I'm sorry, no matter what that means.
Well, I know Dave Campbell, friend of the show, he tweeted that from a source that it sounds like it's not going to change. Now, who knows?
Yeah, that was before he asked Ian Murray, and then Ian Murray actually qualified and said, no, we are discussing things with the league. So he does have a well-placed source, he says, but, things are fluid. Farhan Lalji, again, has great sources, and he said we weren't making any changes at all, so we will see. And Chris Agar says it definitely costs more in attendance and the growing sense of apathy. Ken says less than 10,000 fans in the stands, like bums in seats, suggests exactly that the organization can't afford to sit pat either. Sketchy Jack says, whoop, whoop, get the broom and dustpan, fall cleaning in progress.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Followed by bye, Felicia.
Yeah, that. Right. So, not a lot of. Sketchy Jack is really not worried about that.
He's sitting on the fence. Yeah,
that's what I thought. Yeah, but actually, that's a question that I wanted to ask. Do you guys think that significantly low number of fans? Do you think that was one of the main triggers for the board to go, holy? Like, we got to do something massive here, or do you think it's the combination of everything, or what do you think?
Was that a historic, low attendance?
Since we got in the Commonwealth, yes.
Yeah, for sure, Commonwealth. Yeah.
I would
I
say
mean,
that's
prior
big
to that, we're
shit.
looking at the late 60s and early 70s to see those kind of numbers. It's bad. Now, I mean, again, you're also including the numbers they announced were season ticket holders plus walk up. But I mean, when you're at the stadium, you can tell there are not 22,000. You've been there. We've been there. 10,000 is probably generous on some days. And while you can say, yeah, well, we got your money because you bought the tickets anyway, you're not selling concessions, you're not selling merchandise. So, and worse, you're not going to get these people coming back next year because they're like, if you're going to play like this, I got a big screen TV at home, I'll just watch it in there or watch something else, and you're losing those people. So,
well, I'm not going to lie. I kind of like the smaller crowds just because I could attend West of Us on time. It was great.
Yes, that's true.
The one time that I'm not there and you're attending West of Us on time, it's very, I know. We'll fix that.
Hey, I held the fort down last
I do
game.
appreciate
I
that.
was the only one there from this pod, so.
I do appreciate that on a number of levels, but
no guilt trip. It was just successful for me, but anyway.
She's all of a sudden Kayla has become our travel agent on this guilt trip. That's
right.
Fine.
That's
I can't travel anywhere else, so.
A bit of discussion about the culture. Chris Agar says culture is unattainable, at least according to Brock and Elizondo. Coach Vic is saying that the team lost half their office staff, 75 down to 35. No wonder there's no office response when you call in, which has been something I know a lot of people have complained about. And you and I, for that matter, went in on a Saturday to go to the team store and found out it's never open on Saturdays anymore, which is mind-boggling to me how it can not be open when, people aren't working. But what are you going to do?
And I think that's maybe what Mr. Murray was talking about when he was saying, the numerous complaints about customer service. And I get streamlining, but you got to find a way for us as fans to actually interact with you, whether that be in person in the store or on the phone or by email or by social media for that matter. Like you have to find, and I know that was one of your big things, Commish, was just, you gotta, and he said this a couple of times today, that whoever gets into the GM position, whoever gets into the head coach position, they have to be prepared to engage the fans in some way or another. And that's going to be part of the rollout of that position. And that's, like I said, when you said earlier, you felt like you were heard. That's, I think, something that we're all looking forward to is engaging and trying to figure out how do we get more people here.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it, Kayla.
No, I was just going to say, much to my chagrin, social media is a big aspect of it. And it's only going to get bigger from here. You need to have that, I hate to say that modern, younger approach to it, but you kind of do. I mean, everyone on the Twitter sphere who follows CFL loves the Argos Twitter account because they're funny. They interact. They poke fun at themselves when they suck. There's that nuance that has completely gone out the window this year, unfortunately, for the Elks account, which it used to be that way a couple years ago, 2 years ago even. And that is how you entertain not only on the football field and off. That's a huge part of the community. I don't personally like it either, but that's just the way that it's evolving. And you kind of have to maintain that and stamp that down a little bit. I mean, there are other teams, and it's not only the Elks who suffer in that area, but the point, we used to have that, and it was lost this season. And Mike, you said it perfectly. It was corporate. It was boring, dull, and it never got responses from the fans. And it's a hard job. I get it. Like, hearing the crap over and over and over again gets boring, but it's a huge part of your public relations now, and you have to work with it. Sorry, Doug, go ahead.
No, nothing to apologize for. Yeah, I was just going to say, and what you said kind of adds to what I was going to mention, is maybe some of the stuff speaks to why Chris Preston is no longer in his role, in the sense of some of the decisions that were made in tough times. I think we all acknowledge that.
Sure.
But in tough times, decisions that are made that sacrifice that front line, especially in this market, in this league, where that fan direct interaction, be it through social media, be it in stores, be it on the phone, is so crucial. And anyway, I mean, I don't want to speculate, but I wonder if that's maybe where some of this fell apart for him, was just some of the decision making in terms of how to operationalize where this team was at, again, in tough times. But I'm starting to connect the dots a little bit and wonder if that's maybe what led to him being, because the words that Murray said today were, or maybe it was in the interview after when he was talking to Morley and Dave, and he just said, we respect Chris. We brought him in. We thought he was, he did some good things, but we don't feel he's the right person to deal with these problems.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that's largely what was said, which I thought was an interesting choice of words.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a good point. Good point.
Getting back here, we've got people talking about Darrell Walker. Chris Agar says that Darrell looked sort of disinterested, like he didn't want to be there. And Kobe Godwin says, what value does Darrell even have for a trade now? I don't believe Darrell is under contract post-February. So while you could trade him to someone for the next 3 months so they'd have exclusive negotiating rights, I don't think there's a whole lot of value there, unfortunately. And yeah, I mean, Darrell Walker used to catch a lot of balls and to have only 4 out of 13 as an example. I mean, he was catching out a 50% rate throughout the entire season. So that's like, it's just not him. So I don't know what that is.
Back. Oh.
Unfortunately, Zylstra, well, not for him, but he's doing well out there.
He's doing well, I know.
Yeah.
Well, and now just, I don't want to take it all off of Darrell, but the other part is we got to remember who was throwing him the ball for most of the year too. Yeah. Like, I mean, he was dropping it when it was Harris.
He was dropping it with Harris. Just he had the same catch rate too.
Yeah, but when the ball is coming at you at 800 miles an hour and you're used to getting a Michael Riley, loaf of bread in your in your hands, maybe that plays a role. I don't know. The
chemistry seemed off across the board.
Agreed.
Well, and was it the Winnipeg game in September, the first one, where Cornelius underthrew Walker on an out route. Yep. Walker comes to the sidelines, beacon at Cornelius.
Yep. And
then the next drive, I think it was the next drive, he drops an easy one that would have extended a drive. And I'm just
right off his hands. Yeah.
If that's fine. You want to go and beak at your quarterback. Hey, that happens. Geez, David Archer tackled Don Blair on a table. So, I mean, whatever, it happens. But you better not be dropping a thing the rest of that night.
Right.
That's in the window.
Yeah.
You better not be dropping a thing. And so, to me, in any sport, if you're going to do that, that's fine. But you better back it up and demonstrate why you had the right to go after your quarterback.
That goes back to me, as you say that, I think about Adarius Bowman. Not that he ever went and yelped at the quarterback or anything, but he would drop one. But then the rest of the game, it wouldn't matter if it was within a couple of yards, he caught it because just make sure that they throw it to you next game, right? And he was brilliant at that, and that was actually a really good example of kind of how the season went in that particular Winnipeg game. So, sorry, Mike, we keep branching off, but
all good. That's what the whole point is, discussion, right? So I'm just skipping ahead a little bit. What do we got here? Ken Ludwig says the next head coach, all in caps, has to have head coaching experience. And UI and Paul Reckner were discussing that earlier today. I just don't see a lot of people to pick from that will qualify as that. Paul put together a list of people that included Chris Jones, Mike Benavides, Jason Moss, Richie Hall, Devon Claybrooks, Jeff Reinbold, Rich Stubler, June Jones, Jim Barker, Matt Dunnigan, and Kavis Reed. So I'm not sure which one of those is the silver bullet we need. I'm not sure any of them really are.
Well, I think
for one reason or another. There's lots of different reasons.
Yeah, just for Jason West, though, it should be Benavides.
Benavides? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's what we want.
Yeah, just to get him to burst a blood vessel in his brain.
There you go. He's never listening to this podcast again because we
exactly.
Still, it was funny.
And then
okay.
Kent says Mark Washington would be a good choice, so maybe he's just maybe he's seen the light now.
Okay.
Chris Agar is not a big fan of Chris Jumpin' Jones. No thanks. She would rather have the consistency that Calgary and Winnipeg have earned, which is tough.
Like the way
Patrick beat Penguin. Yeah, is how can you possibly get it right for these hires on such a tight timeline?
Well, but here's the thing. With the decision coming down today and them announcing they have Wally Buono under contract to help and they have these other things in place, there's a part of me that thinks that in behind the scenes, they've already kind of started to
Yes.
Right? Like they already had, it isn't something that just started this morning. It's
So they didn't just fire him and then get on the phone to Wally Buono and say, "Hey, Wally, what are you doing?"
Hey, guess what? Do you want to
2 months?
Yeah, exactly. So and Wally could have known about it for a while, and he could have already been reaching out to guys, like, right? And when you're talking, Mike, about like Mark Washington, and I think about guys like G. Roy Simon, all these guys that Buono has known and kind of watched them grow. Like you kind of wonder if those guys, we have to think that they're being at least put forward for an interview style, right? So, and
Killam's been interviewed a lot, right?
He sure has. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
and doesn't have it. And actually, Jerry Cooper points out Mark Killam, does he get a look? 17 years with Calgary and 12 as a special teams coordinator. He certainly has a lot of experience there.
Yeah.
So
wait a second. Now, no, that I would be hoping too much to think that might actually fix our special teams. That's 5 years down the road. That cannot happen next year. So
2025 is even too soon for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Ken Ludwig says that he's heard that Killam is the heir apparent to replace Dickinson, but I mean Dickinson's still fairly young for a coach. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Maybe there's a bit of a tie there, but
yeah, I mean he's still there, right? But he's interviewed other places, so
yeah, we'll see. I can't say that I'd be terribly upset if Killam came up here and then called up his old buddy Devon Claybrooks to run the defense. I wouldn't be upset about that because that was a hell of a defense. Anyway, just now exactly, and we'd all wear our hats sideways just for fun. Be wonderful.
Would we?
Well, I would.
Chris Agar, yeah, it's true. Of course you would. Chris Agar says, good point, Doug. The NFL has done a good job of turning into the CFL 30 years ago. Mahomes and Kyler Murray are CFL-style quarterbacks. So, and then Jerry Cooper says, having only 2 quarterbacks on the roster this year was a step backward in quarterback development. They need to change that back, and I think that's definitely been underreported for sure this year. That's been tough.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Let's see what else we got here. Chris says, negativity is contagious. I believe the low attendance was a huge part. And Tim says, I'm convinced that COVID played a lot bigger part in the historic low attendance across the league this year. And while that is true, Edmonton has always been traditionally one of the top 2 attendances in the league for the last, 44 years?
Yeah.
42 years, 43 years. And it's dropped significantly. And while you're seeing other teams dropping, it's not dropping, I don't think, as much as we are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
we're still top 2 in 2019. So
right.
Yeah. And yet,
but I do think COVID, I know, I mean, and maybe you all had the same experience. I definitely had friends who would have normally gone to games and just said, with COVID and kids not being vaccinated, et cetera, I just don't feel comfortable going. And so, yeah.
You just explained me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's right. So I think do I think it's the whole reason why attendance was down? No, I don't. Because it's been dropping, steadily for a while. But do I think I think it was a big factor. And losing every game at home doesn't tend to help either. But
yeah, but even after we won, the 2 games and Labor Day game, the attendance in the rematch was not great.
It's not great. No, you're right.
And the Labor Day rematch should be the big one, and especially when you win on Labor Day.
Well, yeah.
Let's face it, it's only got to be old guys that can remember that. But, Tim Capper says, plus the vaccine passport was a huge issue as well. And I can't disagree. Having gone to all the games up until the 8th home game, and only then just because of illness that we missed that one. But seeing the crowd was on average probably 10, 15, 20 years younger. You had a lot of those older people not going. Are they not going because they're worried about COVID? Are they not going because they are more against the vaccine passport? Are they going because they don't understand the technology to get their vaccine passport? I don't know. I mean, speaking to my own dad, he's not as computer savvy as many are. He's in his own words, he's a bit more of a Luddite. So I think that would have been a problem for him to get that vaccine passport. If you can give him a card that he just hands somebody, not a problem. But if you have to give him something on his phone, which up until recently was a flip phone from 100 years ago, that's a little tougher, right?
And not only that, it's also the digital tickets. I helped someone find their ticket, and it took us about 10 to 15 minutes just to coordinate. And it was because he was given tickets by a friend, so they were in his email, but that whole, you can't save it to your phone unless you have that app, because Ticketmaster has like that swiping, right? Mm-hmm. So we were there standing there for about 10 minutes trying to figure this out. I was like, well, it should be in your tickets. Why isn't it in there? But I didn't know, because he didn't know it got sent to his email. So you had to go to that email, pop up the email, press that link, and then it brings you to it. It's not saved in your Ticketmaster file unless you purposely go in and save it in there in your tickets. So it was just this whole thing but he didn't know. And he wasn't really that old, maybe in his late 50s, 60s.
That's very young.
Well, and know that, but that's not old. That's not old.
I agree.
But it was also that thing where that even for me, like, it was trying to figure it. Okay, now I get it, but it took me like a couple of minutes to understand, where did you get these tickets from? Let's start from there. So, I totally empathize with an older generation who doesn't have that tech savviness that, my generation, and even the younger, like after me, it's way more complicated, actually. It's way more complicated to go to the games. Even for me, it's like, where's your ID? Show me your passport. Let me scan your ticket. Let me check your bag now. It's clear. Why do you need to check it? You can say everything.
Are we saving that much money not having printed tickets? Like, are we saving so much money that we can afford to lose these people that just want a paper ticket? They can walk up and someone scans that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot older for the older generation, and they say the average age of a CFL fan across the league is in their 50s. So that means, considering I see a lot of people under that, there's got to be a lot of people over that. They've spent their entire life getting a ticket, handing the ticket, getting it scanned, and walking in the door. To remove that, and they have to fiddle with their phone. That's tough.
How they got convinced. I mean, like other leagues have been doing it largely because of scalping issues. They're trying to minimize that. Yeah. Right. Like, let's be honest, that's not a big issue, I don't think, right now in the Canadian Football League. So why on earth, in the middle of a pandemic, you decide that it's a good idea to do that, to do the bag policy? Like, give me a break. I mean, just, let's make it somewhat simple for people to get in the game. And they just, they did not do that. And again, maybe other reasons why there were changes today.
But it's literally a barrier to entry.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. Yep, not wrong.
Let's go on here. I mean, we still got lots to talk about here.
Oh, really? Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah, Chris Agar says EE social media is bottom of the barrel in the CFL, in my opinion. No disrespect to the social media team at Edmonton, but other teams completely overshadowed the EE with their content. And I mean, I've got to agree, if you're trying to attract the millennial age, and that seems to be the magic age group that all sports teams and all entertainment teams are trying to get, why would you get rid of the thing that they really like? I mean, stop making them it being a propaganda machine of towing the public line. Let them have fun. Let them improvise. Chris Sheets is the same thing. Like, he seems to be more and more reading from a script. Like, he has to follow this line instead of just, I mean, I've listened to him on the radio. He's a funny guy. He's a spontaneous guy. And then you get to the stadium and it's just very regimented and who wants the ball back and all this stuff. You can almost time it to the play. It seems like, let them just be them. You hired them for a reason. Otherwise, get a robot.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Yeah,
I'm in agreement with you.
And same thing with the in-stadium announcer, right? Like, make it fun. Yeah,
exactly.
It fun. That was tough this year.
Yeah,
Coach Vic does have a mystery that he'd like solved. Okay. It appears Kayla has a bottomless glass for her wine. It never gets empty.
That is why, my friend.
She's got a bottomless bottle. That's why.
Even better.
Exactly. Let's get a straw.
Where do you buy those? I want one. Yeah.
Tim Caffer says, I agree with what Kayla's saying. The other ways lost way too many people to layoffs and just leaving the organization. We lost a ton of good people in Montreal, and we have yet to see it bounce back, and that is sad.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't want to take anything away, by the way, from the people that actually are in the Elks store, because they're super friendly and helpful.
Yeah.
When
they're doing what they can.
When they're open and you walk in and say, hey, I'm looking for this. Oh, yeah. They like very, very helpful. Yeah. They want to, oh, have you seen this? Are you looking for this? Like, it's great, right? But I only got in there because I had this week off.
Right.
Like, I can't get there otherwise because you're not open because I'm working.
Right.
And it's little things like that, right? So, but the people who are there, sure, they're doing their best, but they don't have enough people to run it properly.
Well, apparently I have a prize waiting for me, but I can't get there because I work and I don't even live in the city. And if they're not open on the weekends, how am I supposed to get it?
And there's no more game days.
And it wasn't open. The store, if I'm not mistaken, when they did the name launch, the store was not open for significant time. Like, I gave up trying to even worry about it because I'm like, so the only way I can buy any new stuff is I have to buy it online, even though I live 20 minutes from the store and we're allowed to try it on. Yeah. Right. That was a huge, I mean, they said they had good merchandise sales, which I'm sure they did, but it could have been significantly better, I think, had they been
big time.
Now,
actually out there and accessible.
And I agree. Part of that, though, is because the store is in a city-run facility that they had closed due to COVID, right? And so they didn't really get to open until I'm sure there is, like, put a pop-up outside.
Exactly.
Right? Like, fine. But I'm not saying that they couldn't have taken the, they have the truck that they pull up at the games, and they could have put that in the parking lot and had people drive through, and I want that, and there could have been. I'm not saying there was other ways they could have made it better, absolutely, but I just wanted to caveat a little bit on that one, that we were talking about COVID playing a role, and I think that did be because of where the store is in a city-run facility. So.
But they knew they were going to make the announcement, and if they could have set up a pop-up store, whether it's in the parking lot, I think it'd be better if there was a lot of places that had closed down, that had completely pulled their stuff out. Go into one of those in one of the malls if you have to, so there's always ample parking, and then people can try on the clothes. If you're doing one of those trucks, then you're handing it to somebody. You're stuck in a truck, so if they take off, you're never catching them.
Yes.
So if you're in some kind of indoor store, then someone can try it on. Women's clothes fit notoriously different because of different body shapes. So are you going to buy a shirt that may or may not fit because I'm a medium in this and an XL in that and a large, and you know what I mean? So who knows? Anyway, I think they could have, but
I'm not saying you're wrong. For sure they could have.
Ken Ludwig says, with Tolliver and Edwards, I'm afraid there is no room here for Walker anymore. I think, if we had 2018, 2019 Walker, there's always room.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Dude, training camp.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Cosmic Rhubarb, Leanne says, maybe Wally will come out of retirement. And Ken says that question was asked at the press conference. I mean, that's at this point... He's probably like, I'm enjoying life with the family and everything else.
He's more, I think what Ian said, which made sense to me, is he likes spending time in hot places.
Yeah. The Paul father has retired.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. Yeah. Tim Capper says, what's funny is...
Right? That's what you
mean?
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. It's going right now.
Yeah.
Tim Capper says, what's funny is that almost 2 years ago to the day, Wally held the exact same position with the Alouettes when they were going through their organizational change. Chris says, Wally is the godfather.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
Quentin Eberts is on saying, congrats to all the Tim card winners, and that's fantastic for sure.
Nice.
Ronan, aka I think this is Y Slug, says Wally is doing the Glen circuit in not so record time. We'll have the Wandering Wallies now.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna wear your best Wano gear.
Yeah.
I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah. That's awesome.
100%.
Chris Agar is talking about the mobile ticketing. Even the mobile ticketing was a half-day seminar for my father from myself.
Right.
So there you go. And then we're getting to the end here. Chris Sheets does seem very bridled. That's Chris Agar. And Coach Vic, I have never been lucky buying online clothes. I have to try it on. And Chris Agar follows up with, I wonder if any of the other teams have dressing rooms to try on merch.
Yeah.
And that is currently it.
That is. Wow. That was a big run, though.
It was a big run. Very chats.
Yeah, it's awesome. And thank you to everybody for contributing on YouTube. And you know what? I'm really surprised there wasn't a comment, although maybe you missed it, or maybe you just skipped over it on purpose. But I'm shocked that somebody didn't say it. And so I'm going to say it. Whoever takes over as that president, GM, whoever it is, they better reach out to Dwayne and find a way to have him get his 50th season.
That's got to be one of the first things.
That would mend a lot with a lot of fans. And I hope that's what happens. And it would give me, there's probably not, there's not anything that would give me a lot more pleasure than being able to go back to training camp next week and seeing Dwayne there in some capacity.
100%.
Yeah, that would that would make things right in a lot of people's books. So I hope that happens. Now, before we wrap up, the Elks announced their season award winners. Talk about that for just a second.
Yeah, let's.
There's only one reason that we're going to talk about this, and I'll get that right at the end. But so MOP is James Wilder.
Yep.
I honestly, I'm not really going to argue that. We were saying that earlier in the season that
sure
for what was on the field, absolutely. James Wilder.
Well, and not only on the field, he's very interactive, and his presence is very well known on Twitter. I found him quite, I don't know, maybe it's just me. He really embraced the Elks fully when he came on board, and as a fan, I really appreciate that. So thank you, James, for all that you did and could do, especially on the social media presence. I really appreciated him interacting very vocally with fans and wanting to be a part of this organization. As crappy as it was this year, he really embraced it, and I really appreciated that as a fan.
Fair enough. I'll give you that. Some of his interactive Twitter stuff, I'm like, oh my God, really, dude? Anyway,
well,
that's just me. But
he's a personality and he has his own opinions. But
yeah,
I found him very embracive of Elk stuff. So I
that's
appreciate
fair.
that.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Special teams. Was there anyone other that was going to be nominated other than Sean White?
Was it just a big X next to it? Was that just, I think, or a big line through that one?
I think it just said, duh.
Yeah.
That's what it should have said. Yeah. Who do you think? That's what it should have said. Yeah, that's right. Rookie, Niles Morgan.
Yes.
Yeah, no argument for me there.
Nope.
Most outstanding defensive player, Derek Moncrief. So that one stumped me a little bit as to why it wasn't Tremaine Washington. Don't get me wrong, Moncrief was good, but to me that seems like, please play with us again.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I hope he does. Don't get me wrong. I hope he's back, but
I thought he was excellent in the limited time he was playing the last couple of games.
Yeah, exactly. But he
Maybe
didn't tie for the lead league in interceptions.
No.
Right. So
second in tackles, defensive tackles.
Anyway, that was just my opinion on that one. And the only reason that we talk about it, because there is only Mool.
There is only Mool.
If I don't get to say that every year, then why the hell do I do this podcast? Yeah, there is no Andrew. There's only Mool. Yes. Which, by the way, if you have not seen the new Ghostbusters, please go see it because it is unreal. It is so good. Oh my God, it's so good. And bring Kleenex. It's awesome.
Paul Rudd. How could you go wrong?
Oh, yeah, he makes it even better. And there were many, many moments where I was like, oh my God, this is going to happen. It's so awesome. Like, there was so nostalgia and yet amazing new story. You got to go see it. Anyway, yes, so there is only Moole. And as usual, most outstanding offensive lineman is Matt O'Donnell, which he has been Moole for many years.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
I was just waiting for Mike on that one. Okay. Mike, do you want to do some horde items now that we're pushing an hour and a half? Or do you want to wait?
Yeah, I'll make it pretty quick. Okay, I just wanted to point out today, being November 22nd, 2021, is the 40th anniversary of the Grey Cup win of the greatest team the CFL has ever seen.
Wow.
And that is the 1981
Yes.
Edmonton Eskimos, Elks, green and gold, whatever you want to call them. They are the number one in our hearts. To give you an idea, on that team, the members who are in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame on the Wall of Honor, or both, include Dave Cutler, Ron Este, Dave Dr. Death Fennell, Brian Fryer, Larry Highbaugh, Hank Alisic, Brian Kelly, Danny Kepley, Neil Lumsden, Warren Moon, James Quick Parker, Hector Pothier, Tommy Scott, Bill Stevenson, Tom Wilkinson, and special notice to Marco Sinkar, who is on the Turf District Wall of Fame, at least in Andrew's heart. So,
absolutely.
I mean, it's hard to argue with that one. And something I put together a while ago, many people have seen the 1981 Red Rooster cards, which was an amazing set. You can usually find it in complete form for $40 or $50, which isn't bad for a 40 card set, and it has all the members of the team. And back then, 40 cards is a lot. So what I did is I put this together. Hopefully everyone can see it.
Oh,
a little bit of a. Is that going to be a little easier to see?
There you go. Yeah, that's good.
Although it's kind of like a little depth chart there with all the positions. You've got an amazing offensive line there with Ted Million at center, Upton and Blanchard at guard, Stevenson and Pothier. Quick Parker, I mean, you've got 3 of these 4 guys who are in the Hall of Fame on the defensive line with David Boone, who is another outstanding guy, Potter and Towns, Mike McLeod, Jones and Gary Hayes, Joe Holloman in the secondary. There's your guy, Waddell Smith. Just an absolutely outstanding roster.
Look at the dew on Sinkar. Oh, my God. It's amazing.
And again, have a shot. See if you can maybe track down some of those Red Rooster cards, because that's a great little set. Looks great framed. Like I said, I sort of put the pictures in there, scanned them in, and printed it out. And I think it's been a lot of fun.
That's
awesome. I couldn't let the 40th anniversary go unmentioned.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have the Red Rooster set up on my wall too, but not the not in depth chart version like yours.
Yeah.
But that's very cool. Cool. Thank you, Superfan. And yes, we gotta honor those special days when they are.
Well, the team doesn't seem to be talking about the history these days. In fact, they're painting over it on the stadium. So
Very sad.
You're not bitter.
Well, that's another whole thing. There's that, and the other thing that bugs me is even where, and again, this is a business piece, probably trumping the history side. I can't stand where the Wall of Honor is now. I mean, it's just you can't even see half the names.
Yeah, down below.
They're blocked out by equipment and other. Anyway. That's another big.
All about advertising.
Yep.
Yeah. There's got to be a way that those can become more visible and put Dwayne's name on the wall, for damn sake. Anyway.
Well, yes.
That's my thing. All right. Well, let's do a couple of pick'ems for this week because we do have a couple of semifinal games. I know we're not. Well, I hear. Yeah. I didn't even think there was playoffs this year, but surprise, there is. So
like 89, there's no playoffs.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. When Winnipeg loses next week, all their fans will be like, yeah, they canceled the Grey Cup in 2021, just like we did when it was, yeah. All right. So first game, Montreal versus Hamilton. This one ends up being in Hamilton because Montreal could not beat the Red Blacks. As you said, Trevor Harris loses to the Red Blacks 3 times this year. Granted, they did decide that Standback only needed to play half a ball game, and that might have caused a bit of a problem. So it could be kind of interesting going into here. So Montreal travels to the Hammer for this. Doug, who you got in this game?
I got to go Hamilton. I think they're a better team than their record indicates. Again, some issues on offense a little bit. I mean, obviously Mazzoli's been all right, but I think Hamilton's a better team, and I think Hamilton's going to be playing at home in a few weeks.
Ooh, interesting. All right. Super fan?
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Hamilton, certainly, if you were playing that same Montreal team, you don't have a whole lot to worry about. I think once Vernon Adams Jr. went out, that sort of dynamic quarterback style disappeared. And, I just don't see it happening for Montreal. So I'll take the Ticats to win this one and take it to Toronto.
Okay. Kamish?
Oh, man.
Holy Mazzoli versus the Montreal. Oh, Sophie's choice.
Again, it's my head and my heart, and they're on opposite ends completely. So you're telling me Vernon Adams is not back?
He's
Not that we know of, no.
I thought I read something today that he was possibly practicing. Maybe I'm just dreaming it up in my head. Because you're right. It's like Holy Mazzoli, and it's like Vernon Adams, and it's like the duel of,
That's your heart.
Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to compromise, and I'm going to say I'm going for Montreal, but I have a feeling that Hamilton is going to take this one.
So are you picking Montreal, or what are you doing?
I'm picking both so I don't lose.
Okay.
It's a tie.
I don't know if you know how pick'em works.
Well,
But in pick'em, you have to pick
bottle
one.
of wine in, I don't know what works anymore.
Tim Capper says Vernon Adams has just had his sling removed, starting rehab.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So no,
okay,
he's not playing.
so-
Yeah.
So unless his rehab includes a playoff game,
Could I coerce him too?
you could try.
The playoff tie.
Okay, so Holy Mazzoli. That's what I'll say. That's all.
All right. Well, I am going to
Okay.
be I'm going to be the difference in the bunch. I think Montreal goes into Hamilton and wins this one. I think that they use stand back the entire game, and they control on offense, and they find a way to win. And Trevor's always good for one good playoff game.
This is going to be it.
Yep. Yep. That's what I think it's going to be.
I
So,
hope you're right.
and that defensive line in Montreal has become quite a force, and the Hamilton offensive line is kind of hit and miss. So, I honestly, the game could go either way, but I'm going to pick Montreal. So,
Man, you made me change my mind.
too late. You had your chance to pick one. You had your chance.
okay,
Yeah,
Keep
that's,
going.
that's right. Okay. Next game, Calgary rolls into the big rectangle to play the Riders. Superfan, where are you heading?
I think Calgary is just rolling on a bit of momentum, even with that last game. And Saskatchewan, I think, is just not as good as some people seem to think they were, even outside the rectangle. But yeah, I honestly think Calgary is going to win in Regina for the first time in 50 years in a playoff game.
But they've only played 3 games.
Twice.
Okay, good.
2007, 2009. The only times they've played there since 1971.
But it sounds
But
really
it
sounds
sounds
it's a
way
massive
better
deal.
if you say they've won in 50 years there.
That's awesome. All right, Commissioner.
I don't have to pick. That's what's so great. I made an oath at the beginning of the season I will not pick Calgary, and I don't have to choose between these awful teams because it's made for me. Going for the Riders.
All right
God.
then. Okay, I agree with Mike. I think Calgary's just finding their groove, and I think Calgary moves on to play the Bombers the next week. Doug?
I'm with Kayla. I just hope I prefer them just to cancel the game because I just can't stand either of these two teams. But I think Saskatchewan surprises me. I mean, they're an interesting team. I just sort of look at them, and maybe Calgary's the same. They should be better than I feel they both are right now. So part of me thinks, hey, a 1972 rematch in Hamilton between the Riders and the Ticats might be interesting down the road. But I think Calgary wins in Regina. I think Calgary might beat Winnipeg. If you want to be, I worry about Winnipeg. It's sort of, you just have one of those. I know we're not talking about we get, but I worry about Winnipeg. I mean, the fact that they've been home and cooled for a while. You get the bye this week. We got a lot of pressure on them. We've seen that movie more times than we'd all like to remember. I don't know. Calgary just worries me. If Mitchell gets rolling, they could be trouble.
All right. Fair enough. But
don't get me wrong. I do not want that to happen. But.
Okay. I'm so glad you put the qualifier in there. That's the hashtag at the end. Please don't get me wrong. I don't want. Yeah, That's not what I want. It's what I think. Yeah. Okay. Fantasy football superfan. I picked up a win against Rod. You just lost to Joe last week of the Rouge, White, and Blue podcast.
One pick was the difference.
Oh, crazy.
And them listing Ouellette as the starter and not playing him.
That was killer. That was killer. I was lucky that my other guys showed up to kind of balance off, but wow, that was brutal. Now, so as it turns out, I finished in first, so I get a bye to the through the quarterfinal week. And you are playing Safamod this week from the Rebels podcast. When you win, is that better?
That's better.
Okay, so when you win, then we will have a district showdown in the semifinals, which means one of the district boys are going to the final, which is going to be outstanding. That's very exciting. So that's my excitement part of that. I want to thanks again. Yeah, I can't wait to have the belt. I want to say thank you again to Ryan Coop for setting that up from the Canadian Football Countdown podcast. Make sure you listen to all the shows at cfpodnetwork.ca. This episode is also brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider in Alberta, offering internet, electricity, and natural gas with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. In Alberta, you get to choose who you buy your internet, electricity, and natural gas from. Not national gas, natural gas from. Could be both. If you choose Park Power, you are choosing a positive local business. Plus, Park Power shares its profits with local not-for-profits that are working to make a difference in their communities. Shopping local is very important to Park Power's owner, Chris Kozowski, and we love local at the Alberta Podcast Network. So it's a great fit. You can learn more at parkpower.ca. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Doug, to chat about all of this with us. I know an eventful day, and we forgot to say right off the start, thank you to the Elks for doing that on a Monday morning before we record the podcast, because usually
that doesn't happen often.
Yeah, I was thinking, we're going to record on Monday night and talk about two meaningless games, and then we're going to have to record on Tuesday night when they make some huge announcement after, but they did it this morning. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. And thank you for all of you that hung in there with us for the full time, as I know this is going to be a bit of a longer show. But Doug, tell everybody, where can they find you on socials where they can talk more Elks with you and all of your knowledge?
At Doug McLean 15, and McLean spelled McLean. So I always have to qualify that. But yeah, yes. Doug McLean 15 if you want that, and random other. U Sport football, Canada West football is done. You have to hear me rant about that, and basketball's going soon. So yeah, but yeah, that's where it is.
Perfect. Well, we love having you on, man, and thank you for coming on with your insight. I just love it. It's fantastic.
Hey, love being here. Thanks, and congrats on all the great work you all continue to do. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Superfan, where does everybody find you?
So they can find me at 56 Parkies, and then the history segment, which is going to be both the history and some of the Horde and Tell stuff, is at Edmonton Football History. That's at EDMHISTOREE.
It sounds like a song. I swear.
It does.
It really does.
One day.
One day. I'm excited for it. Kamish?
On the Twits at Duchess Lombardi. And no, that is not my last name, by the way. I actually got a Christmas card a few years ago that said Kayla Lombardi. I'm like, that's sweet, but it's so not right. I'm honored.
You should see your Packer sweep. That's all I'm saying.
That was going to be my point.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm also kind of reeling because you called it the Twits. I'm like, what?
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Sometimes kind of right.
That's true.
What it is.
Not even sometimes. I might say most times.
It's around Twitch. Like, I'm all up in it.
That's right. All right, perfect. Make sure you're following Pay It Forward with Football because, of course, they are doing the Stuff a Wallet initiative, and we want to make sure that somebody gets help there through the Christmas season. So nominate people that you think could be helped, and then donate if you can. I want you to check out the Bridging the Gap podcast, where Karen and Stephanie interview people of all ages to bridge the generation gaps. They actually had a 12-year-old that interviewed a 25-year-old. And then they had the two regular hosts, Karen and Stephanie, who are kind of in their 50s, and they interviewed a 94-year-old. And it's just talks about all the different generation gaps and kind of, you know, I have questions for why you do this, and then there's questions back. So it's actually a really cool podcast, and you can find that and a whole bunch of other great shows on the Alberta Podcast Network at albertapodcastnetwork.com. And of course, you can join in the huddle with us at the Turf District. You can find that on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that you find podcasts. So we will be back next week, and to preview the West Final, we're going to welcome in Zach from the Let's Go Bombers podcast. It's a new podcast that's out that I've really been enjoying. He's a super excited Bomber fan, and actually, as I listen to it, I remember when we started in 2015 and our team was that good, and the excitement, and you're bringing in fans and talking about how excited you are. And so in 5 years, I'm excited for him to have a season like this and see how he does. Where we still find the positives somehow. But we're going to bring Zach in here to talk about podcasting and talk about his Bombers as they get ready for the West Final. So as always, thank you for joining us. Remember, you can't catch footballs with your face. And for Doug, Superfan Mike, Kayla, I'm Andrew, and we will absolutely talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.